They call it honor. A noble word, a shining word, polished like the edge of a well-kept blade. A word spoken by lords in warm halls and echoed by bards who've never held steel in their hands. They write it into scrolls. They carve it into stone. But they have not walked where I have walked. I have seen the faces of the dying. I have heard the prayers of men who knew they wouldn't be heard. And I have followed the code, not out of pride, but out of fear. Fear of becoming the very thing we fight. They said, never strike the unarmed. So I waited as he reached for his sword, waited as he found his courage and killed me with it, not in flesh, but in soul. They said, protect the innocent. But in war, innocence is a luxury. A face can smile in daylight and slit your throat by nightfall. I spared one boy. He came back years later wearing the enemy's crest. They said, die with dignity. But dignity is a tale for poets. The real dying is not quiet. It is screaming, sobbing, choking on blood. There is no glory in it. I wore honor like a mask. I walked proud, sword at my hip, saluted by those who believed I was righteous. But behind that mask was doubt, a storm of questions I dared not ask. Was I merciful or weak? Was I noble or a coward in disguise? Was I protecting or simply obeying? I followed every rule, every law of the sword. And yet the faces of the fallen visit me in my sleep, even those I spared, especially them. I carry ghosts. Some wear the faces of enemies, some of friends. There was Darren, who died beside me, shield raised, protecting a child. He believed in the code, truly, purely, and for that he died. There was Irwin, who disobeyed an order to burn a village and was hanged by our own captain. He broke the code, but kept his soul. Whose honor do we follow then? The one written by kings, or the one whispered in the dark by our conscience? The war ended, or so they said. The banners were lowered. The horns grew silent. But peace is not what they promised, because while the swords sleep, the memories do not. I walk through the village I once defended. Children run, mothers smile, but when they look at me, the smiles falter. They know what I've done, and worse, so do I. I stood at the edge of a battlefield, watching crows pick at armor. Honor had brought me here. It had asked me to bury my guilt beneath the rules, but it rose anyway, in every face I could not save, in every oath I kept that cost someone their life. I began to wonder, was the code made to protect others, or to protect us from ourselves? It is easy to kill when the law says you're right, harder to live with it when the blood fades. So now I speak the truth, to you, to the wind, to whatever gods may still listen. Honor is not a crown, it is a chain, and I have worn it long enough to feel every link pressing against my chest. It taught me to fight, but not to feel. It gave me a path, but not peace. If you hear my words, know this: do not seek honor as your purpose. Let it be your companion, not your master. For the greatest battles are not fought with swords, but with silence. And the greatest victories are not the ones we win, but the ones we survive. For years, I believed the blade was all I had, that the code was the only compass in a world drowned in chaos, that to serve meant to suffer, that honor once taken could never be restored. But something changed, not in the clash of steel, not in the thunder of hooves or the roar of fire, but in the quiet, in the space left behind when the war finally ended, in the silence of a world beginning again. I began to hear things I had forgotten, the laughter of children, the rustling of wind through leaves, the sound of my own breath, steady, calm, alive. For the first time, I looked not to the horizon, but to the earth beneath me, and I saw flowers blooming where blood once soaked the soil. A farmer placed a seed where I had once buried a man. A woman sang to her newborn under the same sky that had once been black with smoke, and I let my sword rest, not abandoned, but at peace. I learned that honor is not just obedience, it is care. It is knowing when to raise your shield and when to open your arms. The past still walks with me. Its shadows stretch long in the light, but they no longer own me. They no longer define me. I tend a garden now. Simple things, tomatoes, herbs. I watch them grow under sun and rain, knowing that life too takes time. And when young warriors come to me, eyes wide and fists clenched, I do not speak of glory. I speak of grace, of balance, of knowing that the sharpest sword can do less good than an honest hand. One day I will fall. My bones will rest where so many others do, but I no longer fear it, because I have lived not just as a warrior, but as a man who chose to forgive himself, a man who chose to build, to heal, to hope. If there is honor in this world still, let it be found not in battle, but in rebuilding what was broken, in holding on to love, in daring to believe that there is always light beyond the blade.